Also, I know I'm supposed to be, asking you questions, but I just felt like I was in an awesome college course, just taking in all the knowledge and information. So I love it. I love learning from you. But I do have a question about for those who are watching live, and let's say they're not harvesting their own foods and medicines, where does one start? Do you have a page, or where's a good resource for us to even start getting our own medicines?
Great question. So, okay, it's kind of an involved thing for me, because in the perfect world, we would all be getting together, I'd be getting together with people, and other people, knowledge holders, would be getting together, and we would be teaching people firsthand right now about what medicines they should be using, how to identify them, and most importantly, how to build a relationship with those plants. Right? It's really hard for me to say, well, go to this website and order this plant, because that doesn't help someone build a relationship with those plants, and instead it almost makes those plants, it commodifies them and makes them seem like, oh, just this sort of thing that you buy on the internet, right? Instead of realizing that someone fought for those plants, right? When we were fighting the Dakota Access Pipeline, one of my primary motivations in doing that was to protect the plants here that, my kids, I want them to have access to those in 50 years, and I don't want them to be contaminated by leaky pipelines. And so, building a relationship with those plants, I think, is so, so important, not just for access, but mentally, emotionally, physically, right? And spiritually. But if you cannot, that is obviously very difficult right now, especially. And so there are a lot of amazing people, like I mentioned earlier, making medicine for people. Follow them on Facebook, on Instagram. There's amazing people teaching. Feel free to follow me on Facebook or Instagram if you want. I'm always posting stuff, recipes and things like that. Start simply. What I always say is start with simple cups of tea. You don't have to do some, I've been doing really complex tea combinations for COVID, but you don't have to. Start with a cup of rosehip tea. Start with a cup of nettle tea. And, these things are available for purchase online. It's hard to find native-owned herb companies. There's one out of Albuquerque called Red Root Herbals. They also do acupuncture, and they're an indigenous-owned herb company. They don't always have things in stock, so if you have to go to a larger vendor like Mountain Rose Herbs, it's better for you to have access to those medicines than not have them at all. But as you're doing this, as you're buying these medicines, I hope everyone is really aware, as my Mashke and White Hat was saying the other day, we are stressing the plants right now. Right? We really are, because we are utilizing so much of them during this pandemic. We're asking so much of them. So make sure to put out your tobacco, put out whatever, your wasna, whatever offering you make to the plants, put those out and make sure to give thanks to them. Follow whatever protocols were put in place by your ancestors, and give thanks to those plants, and make sure to use them in a good way, not waste. So like I was saying, start simply. Start with some simple teas like rose hips, like nettles, both anti-inflammatory. Rose hips are super high in vitamin C, so they help to prevent infection. Start simply with a jar of fire cider, right? Fire cider has been shown to really be amazing for COVID because it helps to open up the lungs, clear out the lungs. It's great for coughs and colds. It's great for the sinuses. Fantastic medicine. And that's just spicy vegetables and apple cider vinegar, in a jar, and then you strain it and add honey. That's all it is, right? And people are always like, I need measurements. Relax. Chill out, just throw some jalapenos into some apple cider vinegar, and that's kind of like fire cider. I have a friend who just takes apple cider vinegar and some sriracha and then drinks that. Hey, do what you have to, do what you have access to. Start simply, relax, and if you have questions, don't hesitate to contact me or contact one of another knowledge holder for help. We're being so open about that stuff right now.
I love it. I was saying, when I remember a couple of years ago, you came down to visit us on Rosebud and helped do a firesider workshop. And I think my wife, Margaret, has probably been simultaneously thanking and cursing you since that day, because my breath is just rugged. But I reach for that stuff whenever. I mean, it's good. It always, like, if I feel myself starting to get, like the achy cold or something, like a quick shot of that in the morning I feel a lot better, even just within the hour. Something I wanted to ask about was you were saying, and I love this, and it was really insightful, I think, when you were talking about before, when, not shaming people around foods, and that sort of like gentle inviting people into this process. I love that. The flip side of that I've seen from you that I also really appreciate is, specifically when you talk about North and South Dakota, you can't not think about the very terrible COVID response that has happened from state leadership. Like, you can't not talk about it.
It's
And I've
genocide.
seen throughout whether it's pipelines, whether it's COVID, whether it's whatever, you have been always somebody who's very vocal in a good, fact-based, positive, standing up for your community kind of way. Like, talk about the importance of that, and kind of for yourself, like why you've decided to take that on.
Well, earlier, you were talking about how, yeah, I'm a mom and I teach, and I'm a gardener, and, an activist and things. And to me, those are all the same things, right? Those are all, like, being a mom. Like, I can't just sit back and, like, watch and listen as, like, literally genocide is being perpetuated against my children's people, especially in North and South Dakota. It's crazy to see. But, I feel like people like Christine Nome, who I do not respect, I feel like people like her literally are looking at the statistics and saying, oh, well, it's pretty much just a bunch of Indians who are dying and some old people. And so, let's just kind of let things go on like they are. And it's like two birds with one stone, right? We're able to get rid of some Indians, some troublesome Indians, the Indian problem. And we're able to get some people off of Medicaid, some elders off of Medicaid. And then, then we're golden. We're okay. I really, honestly, I feel like it is a concerted effort. I really do. And people call me paranoid. People say that I'm just being, that I'm exaggerating, but I don't think so. When you look at South Dakota, I don't remember which day it was, but I saw that there was something like 50 deaths in a span of 1 or 2 days. That's completely insane in a state that has fewer people than medium-sized cities. North Dakota too. There was an article that came out in a North Dakota newspaper. 1 in 1,000 North Dakotans have died so far of COVID. 1 in 1,000. It's just completely insane to me in a state with such a small population. And still people don't care. Like, you guys saw, I'm sure, the tweets from the nurse in South Dakota who said that as people are gasping for breath and dying in their hospital beds, they are still denying that COVID exists. And it's, it's such a shame that has happened. Or even, maybe to take it a step further, it's a shame that people feel so fooled, so distrustful, that they are led to believe that these things don't exist, because just Standing Rock has lost so many fluent speakers in the past couple of months. And I know it makes some of my friends literally cry and mourn the deaths of their friends and their mentors and their teachers. And it's yeah, it's almost too much to handle sometimes, but all we can do is keep going. That's all we can do, is keep making as much medicine and getting as much good food together. Like, my husband asked me one day, he was like, okay, what's your goal with all of this? And I know we're short on time. I'll be quick about this. He said, what's your goal with all of this? And I said, it's to feed and give medicine to as many people as possible and try to stay as positive and happy as possible throughout it. That's just it. I don't have any other goal or anything other than to feed, to give food and medicine to as many people who need it as possible. And that's all we can do, is just keep moving forward and try to stay, sorry, I'm getting emotional, as positive as possible. It's it's hard because, you know, we are, every single day I hear about a new person that I love and care about who is COVID positive and getting life flighted to Fargo because Bismarck hospitals are full. It's such an insane time. But after this, I'm going to smudge. After talking about it, then I'm going to put some tobacco out and I'll be fine.
I'm really glad you went there, and I'm glad you brought that up, Mike, because we are actually having those same experiences here right on our reservation. We just had a huge loss to our community, and it's been really tough for everybody. But when you have bad leadership making decisions the way they are in South Dakota, what are some tips for just the everyday person on combating that? Is it wearing a mask? Is it staying home? Is it just, you know, taking in these medicines? What are some ways that we can combat their terrible decisions?
So one of the things that I think is so important is that you know, you can, like I recently had a friend who said, you know what, my mom really needs me right now, and she has already had COVID, so she just feels like she's just fine. She's been going out to restaurants and stuff, but her mom needs her, so she's quarantining for herself for 2 weeks so that she can go live with her mom for a while. And I think that that's such a fantastic thing. But now she realizes that she can't go out while she's living with her mom. She can't come into contact with people. She can't date while she's living with her mom because then she's putting her mom at risk. Yes, masks all the way. It's so crazy that the jury is still out on masks because I'm sorry, you know, why do you think that breathing and spitting on someone is okay during a pandemic? You know, it's probably not the best thing even during the best of times, but wearing a mask is such a small sacrifice to make, such an easy thing to do, you know? And of course, trying to distance from people as much as possible that you don't know. It is so easy to bring COVID home just from going and having coffee with someone. You know, when I deliver these food kits, I had an elder who hadn't seen her kids in a while and she was so lonely, and she convinced me to come in and have a cup of coffee with her, and I couldn't say no. And I felt like I couldn't say no. She ended up testing positive just a few days later, and so I had to quarantine for 2 weeks. Luckily, I tested negative. But you know, I mean, it's just so hard to do that. I understand, but if we want to save our elders, it's what we have to do. Wear masks. Wash your freaking hands constantly. Use hand sanitizer. I can put recipes up if you're tired of the stuff that dries your hands. Make your own homemade hand sanitizer. Stay back from elders. Go for walks with people. If you are on the dating scene, you know, you find someone who's like willing to say, hey, let's go for a walk outside and get to know each other a little bit. Let's go to the park and bundle up or, you know, have a fire or something like that. And we can visit and get to know each other. You know, do that with friends instead, you know, go around a fire at night with friends in the afternoons or whatever, instead of, you know, putting each other at risk, because we're losing so many elders. It's just not worth it.
I appreciate that. That's totally true. Go ahead.
Sorry. Oh, and keep your immune systems up, right? So keep your immune systems up. Vitamin C, right? Vitamin D3, make sure it's vitamin D3 and zinc, right? Those three, super important. Keep your immune system up. Start giving those vitamins to our elders. Vitamin C, vitamin D3, and zinc. And then, of course, because our food has been lacking, so we do need those supplements right now. And then, of course, things like elderberry, nettle tea, rose hips, dandelion root, burdock root. If you can get those and give them to elders, that's great as well. Fire cider. Keep your immune system strong. Wear your masks, wash your hands, and try to keep a distance from people. And if you want to visit outside.
Something I'm thinking about, you know, now that I'm looking forward, what's your message? What's your hope? What's the thing you've been thinking about, you know, of not like a silver lining, you know, not some feel good silver lining thing, but seriously thinking about, like, what do you want to see change? This has been a major shakeup for the whole world, but especially now you're just seeing the effects of things we've already known for a long time, right? Exactly like you said, like all these things are happening in the community. Now, this comes along. It was always there, and now it's even worse. So what's your hope for how we start to pivot things and how we go through this in a resilient and the good and in a strong way for a better future for kids and grandkids? What's your hopes?
So my hope is that more people will start looking to their traditional foods as nourishment, but also as medicine. It's crazy. I think that you guys saw it down on Rosebud this year too, but didn't you guys see more people gardening this past year than ever before? Or than in decades, I should say, because I know on Standing Rock, everyone had a garden back in the 50s and 60s, right? And so I think that there were more gardens on Standing Rock this year. The Standing Rock CDC has been doing a great job of putting gardens in for people and providing seeds for them and things. And so more people were growing their own food this year. More people were contacting me and saying, okay, I feel like I really have to go out and get some Chiaka to last the winter. That Chiaka is gonna, and it does, mint, all the mint family, that's another one, anti-inflammatory, great. Chiaka, is all those mints are great for the lungs. And so more people were going out and getting that, and more people were going out and getting Teepsila and, asking about how to harvest it sustainably. And, I have seen that, and that's beautiful. And more people have been contacting me and saying, you know what, I really would love a food kit because I really want to start eating healthier. And the nice thing about those food kits, it's like this box of stuff, and that they can contact me and say, okay, what do I do with this? Because it's crazy. We talk about, and you all talk about living in food deserts all the time. We talk about living in a food desert, but really, we live in a culinary desert where people have forgotten how to cook, And so like, if I give people a rutabaga, they're like, what is this? What do I do with it? If you give people even Teepsila, I was really surprised, giving Teepsila out to people who are like, okay, you have to tell me how to cook this because I've never done this before. But that's happening more and more. More people are getting into that and saying, okay, we see the problem here. We see that if the more stuff we eat from boxes and cans, the higher risk we are from complications and heart disease and diabetes and all kinds of things. And so we have to stop that cycle now. That's my hope for the future. And I see it happening. And that really, I think, is what keeps me going, is like, man, I see people making these changes. Oh my gosh, I have, in my class, I'm teaching Indigenous food sovereignty at United Tribes right now. And I have a woman in her 60s in my class who has 2 of her little grandkids living with her. And the reason she's in my class is because she's like, we're overweight, we are tired, I have COPD, we have, all of these health problems, and it has to stop. She said, I'm not gonna let this happen to my grandkids. That's the only reason she's taking my class, so she can learn to eat better and learn to feel better because of it. It's a beautiful thing. And, even in spite of all of this horror that's going on around us, it's also a beautiful and sacred time. And that's not to try to romanticize that at all, but it is a time of like awakening and learning for a lot of people.
Well, Linda, we've been needing to have this conversation for a while, all year long. We've been hearing on the radio, we need to eat healthier. We've been reading articles, but we haven't been able to sit down with anybody and give us the insight that you have given us today. So we're just so grateful for you taking the time to do this. But as we wrap this up, I want to take a step back, and this is more of a little personal question. Where does your passion for Indigenous food sovereignty come from? What is your drive?
It's my kids, definitely. It's my family. I have kids who, they're like any other kids. Like if I give them sugar, they will eat sugar, and they love that stuff. And don't get me wrong, right? I always tell people bacon, brownies, and kamachis are 3 of my most favorite things, but I limit those things. And so all of this is for my kids, my Lakota kids. They are so proud to be Lakota. And I think that that's where really all of it comes from. And it comes from all the other people who, as I said at the beginning, took me in and taught me and loved me and have made me into family, made me a part of their families when they didn't have to. They were not required to, and have been so good to me. So I'm so thankful to them. And that's really where my motivation comes from.
Cool. Thank you. Man, always a pleasure. It's always a lot of fun to talk and to think. I always feel like it's a good conversation when you walk away thinking about and reflecting on things even harder. Because even for myself, I'm like, I do these things, and I'm like feeling challenged even to go do more. I'm thinking of my own daughter. She's 7 months now, and I'm thinking even harder about really what do I want for her, and what do I want for my nieces and nephews, and what is that going to look like? What do I have to do? So I appreciate it. I always appreciate the honesty, the passion, just the good thoughts, the reflection. It's a lot of good life you've shared. Thanks.
Thanks
yeah,
so
I actually
much.
have a perfect example of something you were talking about. Just the other day, my boyfriend made me some tea, and it was bear root, and I didn't drink it. And afterwards, I just felt like it was so wasteful and disrespectful of me to even do that, because when I'm given medicine, like a prescription bottle, I'm like, oh, I paid money for this, and the doctor said I need this, so I'm not going to waste it, and I'm going to take all of it until it runs out. But when he gave me that cup of tea, I let it sit there all day, and it was wasteful. So that's a perfect example. And now that you're talking about this and we're having this conversation, I feel even worse. But aside from that, it's a lesson.
Don't forgive yourself. Don't shame yourself out, because everyone does it. It happens all over the place. Even sometimes I really have to get on my husband. I'm like, there's a bunch of nettle tea in that teapot over there. Go drink it. It happens everywhere with everyone. So.
All right, Linda, well, you already shared so much good information, but I want to leave this next 30 seconds or minute to leave it open to you to just share some good, positive thoughts with all the people who are watching live.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for having me. This was really such a great time and such a great sort of conversation. I know I get going and I just can't stop myself. So I really appreciate you guys giving me time to talk about things that are so important to me. And, I really hope everyone will take the time to just start making simple changes in your life every day. Little things. It doesn't have to be extreme. Start drinking a cup of tea every day. Bear root is great. Great lung support, great for you, great for headaches, everything, great for your immune system. Start, with just a cup of tea. Start with just changing the type of corn you're using, or start with, saying, you know what, maybe today, instead of having something from a box or a can, I'm going to make a really great homemade soup with some buffalo meat and some corn, some hominy and things like that. It's just about those small changes, and we can all do it. And if you need any help, or if you want any ideas, whether it's for medicine ideas or recipe ideas, don't hesitate to contact me or one of your other knowledge holders that are closer to you. I believe people are willing to share. And just one last thing, even with everything that we've all been through and everything that we're seeing, I really want everyone to remember that people are good. Like in general, throughout, really, honestly, truly, it's hard to see, especially if you live in North Dakota and South Dakota, but in general, people are good. You're surrounded by really good people. And, remember that as you're walking outside, staying away from people. So thank you so much, guys, for having me.
There you go. Mute troubles.
I was having mute troubles. So much. You had so much good information. Hello, everyone on the live. Thank you for staying tuned in the entire show. I'm sure we all wish this could go on for an extra hour, but we have to end it here. So if you want more information, if you have questions for Linda, she has been generous enough to share her knowledge, and you should definitely take advantage of that. So you can get in contact with her. Once this video has posted, we'll share some contact information for Linda. And again, Linda, thank you so much for today. It's so much fun, and I hope we get to talk to you soon.
Me too. Thanks, guys, so much. Doksha.
Thanks. Doksha.